As per a report from the FEA-NSTA, an organisation working for the homeless, 895,000 people in the EU are homeless, and many are living in emergency shelters every night. What exactly are EU countries doing to solve this problem? While volunteer organisations have taken on immense pressure to curb homelessness, the sad reality is things are not getting better. Given the rough living of these individuals, their physical and mental health is always on the line. So how does Europe bear the consequence of this? Let's go through country by country to understand this growing crisis. But first, let's understand the root causes of this problem. Europe is experiencing a sharp increase in healthcare costs and instability in the labour market. Providing emergency shelters, healthcare and other support services significantly affects the local government and taxpayers. Apart from the economic impact, homelessness profoundly affects a country's image on a global level, which may strain diplomatic relations between nations. However, the situation is different across the entirety of Europe. Finland and Norway are among those that have strategically worked their way out, while the streets of the UK and Germany still grapple with an increasing number of homeless each year. Several EU countries, including Germany and the UK, treat housing as a reward rather than a fundamental right. They usually view housing as something you earn by doing well economically. This is quite different from places like Norway and Finland. There, policies like Housing First give people homes right away. This helps people find stability and start fixing other parts of their lives. But in Germany and the UK, getting a house depends on a lot of market forces and personal success. This can make it really tough for people who haven't moved up economically to find a good and affordable place to live. Therefore, it can keep the cycle of homelessness going. That's where things go south for people on the brink of becoming homeless. Is it the sole factor responsible for the increasing homelessness? The simple answer is no. But what about the fuel prices, food bills, and living costs there? In January 2023, 47.1% of average household expenses went towards household, transport, and food bills. So how does this affect the people? Do the abandoned, the children, and the unemployed now also need to stress about the cost of living on their own land? The EU recording trade deficit in 2022 only added to the stress as more jobs have been outsourced since then. This only further pushes people on the verge of being homeless to the other side and Europe toward an economic downturn. While the causes could be endless, they all build on the lack of housing first approach. But let's talk about a country that takes a reverse approach. It's Finland. In Finland, people without homes receive a small apartment and counselling without any preconditions. This way, Finland centres its policy around the housing as a fundamental right, not a reward model. In the last 10 years, €270 million were spent on housing as part of the Housing First programme. With this much money spent, it's only natural to wonder, how does this model effectively solve Finland's economic rifts? Through this model, by 2022, the number of people living on the streets had reduced to only 492, and Finland now spends €15,000 less per year per homeless person than before. However, Finland is one of many countries taking this effective approach. But there is a country that has one of the lowest homeless populations in the world. We are talking about none other than Norway. Think of Norway as that famous friend who always gets top grades in school. It doesn't only have the least number of homeless in the EU, but is also one of the countries with the lowest homelessness rates. How did Norway manage to address the real root causes? Through its sustained, collaborative, and more importantly, comprehensive model. The government ran the Housing for Welfare policy from 2014 to 2020, which successfully prioritised housing and support services for the homeless. The policy ensured that rental housing for families with children must be of quality and should be in a safe living space. It also ensured that temporary housing must only be used in exceptional circumstances for families with children and young people. After 3 months of this temporary housing arrangement, the families were expected to move out. This approach helped prevent homelessness among families with children and young people. Norway solved this by splitting between the state, municipalities, and the private sector. The municipalities account for house planning, renovating homes, and providing the proper infrastructure for housing. The private sector then builds houses using this framework. But a question arises: how does this split benefit Norway? With such a model, all involved housing parties get to play to their strengths. Could there be a more cordial yet strategic approach to tackle this? While Norway and Finland successfully executed the housing-first approach, this one country remains in shambles. You won't believe it, but this is the third largest economy in the world. Let's address Germany. The lack of affordable housing units is one of the prominent reasons for homelessness in Germany. As a matter of fact, 85% of households lost their home as they failed to pay the rent. The homeless in Germany aren't just older people, they also include the youth and people falling below the poverty threshold. However, the lack of affordable housing isn't solely to blame, as Germany is also a safe harbor for immigrants. Most of these immigrants are refugees seeking shelter. Meanwhile, 262,600 people in Germany still don't have a roof over their heads. What has been the government's response to this situation? The German Civil Code, BGP, did come up with a solution for when a rental agreement terminates due to failure to pay rent. It grants deferment periods of eviction, and in cases of a severe threat to life or health, it even grants stays of eviction, where individuals could stay up to 3 months after termination of a rental contract. The country also tentatively implemented the Housing First policy in Berlin and Dusseldorf. However, early intervention is still needed to execute specific housing policies, incorporating support services and increasing affordable housing units, because continuing with the current policies only makes accomplishing their mission to eradicate homelessness by 2030 more complex. The next country is playing with more than $1 trillion. But did they actually solve the problem? Let's scratch the surface of the UK's approach to homelessness. United Kingdom. We find that in the UK, increased real estate privatisation has led to a lack of affordable housing. As a consequence, living off the street gets even more far-fetched for those experiencing homelessness, and the number of people living rough is bound to increase this way. Areas such as the South East or London typically have higher rental costs, so people are prone to becoming homeless by facing rental debts and evictions. Moreover, there are disparities in social housing allocation across the UK. This means there are longer wait times for social housing allocation in case of limited housing units. Until the policies aren't tailored to these local contexts, people will remain subject to living rough. Does this mean the UK has yet to take adequate measures to combat this issue? The answer is no, as it offers a springboard to the homeless through the Homelessness Reduction Act, HRA. Enforced in April 2018, the Act emphasizes homelessness prevention by offering 24/7 support to the homeless. But there's another side to this coin, the Vagrancy Act. Under this act, the homeless in England and Wales could be fined up to €2,500 or may face imprisonment. How exactly does this act support the Eradicate Homelessness by 2030 mission when crashing on the streets is treated as a criminal offence? Also, where do they get the money to pay the penalties? Yves Leterme, the former Prime Minister of Belgium and the chair of the steering board for the European Platform on Combating Homelessness, in an interview said, "We need to bring together member states and agree on what kind of policy tools we need based on experiences." That sounds like a wise plan, considering certain EU countries successfully combat homelessness while others still intensely grapple with it. Is progress in the current economic context easy, especially for the UK and Germany? Certainly not. However, evidence suggests that change might be one right policy away. Understanding the nuanced local context, challenges, and economic implications, and then coming up with solutions are critical. Let this topic be your next dinner table discussion, and let us know in the comments section how we can almost eradicate homelessness. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more economic case studies. Until then, see you next time.